Chapter 471, Klein's Preparations. The goosebumps on Klein's skin surfaced uncontrollably as he looked at the beautiful young lady with her misty eyes and furrowed eyebrows. The goosebumps were distinct and were accompanied with cold sweat. At this moment, he felt as if he had returned to Tingen, back to the Blackthorn Security Company, and was about to activate his spirit vision to observe Magos and the baby in her womb. The fear that resulted from his instinct was so clear that it felt like a giant hand tightly gripping onto his heart. He finally understood that the thing interfering with the gray fog and his divinations wasn't a Grade 0 sealed artifact or a mystical item of the same level. There was something even more terrifying hidden within Trissy's body, the symbol of the apocalypse, the primordial demoness.
No, she isn't the primordial demoness yet. Otherwise, I would have already lost control just by being together with her, turning into a pile of squirming rotten meat. She's in a very strange state.
Trissy's brows eased as her eyes regained their focus. As she looked at Klein, who didn't dare to move at all, she gently lifted her right hand, allowing her slender white finger to slowly slide down from the side of her body. With a bit of grievance, seduction, and malice, she laughed and said,
"If you can inform the Nighthawks, the mandated punishers, and the machinery hive mind about this matter, and I happen to meet you before they arrest me, I don't mind letting you know what true pleasure is."
Klein's gaze subconsciously followed the movement of her fingers, and all sorts of mind-blowing details surfaced in his mind.
They aren't considered big, but they are very firm. What am I thinking? What am I looking at? Is this the seductive powers of a demoness of pleasure? Ignoring the fact that you were once a man, even if you were a true lady, without having committed many heinous crimes in the past, to lessen the psychological rejection I have, I wouldn't dare to. If you were to suddenly awaken as the primordial demoness, even the fool can't handle that.
Klein silently sighed, raised his head, looked at the carriage's wooden roof, and said,
"Do you think that I, an ordinary low or mid-sequence beyonder, would have the ability to escape the pursuit of the royal family? I think they have already discovered that something is wrong, and they're about to take action."
Trissy felt somewhat smug that Klein didn't dare to look straight at her. She chuckled softly and said,
"I'll try to escape and divert the main pursuing force. Although the remaining ones are still very powerful, it's not impossible to deal with them. I believe that you will fight with all your might for the sake of your own life. You have great hope."
With that, her figure quickly disappeared, as if someone had wiped it away with a rag. This was different from Sharon, as it wasn't a return to a normal wraith state, but a direct form of invisibility. Bam! The carriage door opened and then closed. The sweet fragrance that remained drilled into his nose, and Klein retracted his gaze, his face sinking. Even now his arms were still trembling slightly, as if he had contracted some disease. If it wasn't for his rich experience, even though he had faced the son of an evil god in the real world with a belly in between them, he, who knew what the name Trissy Cheek meant, wouldn't have been able to bear the terrifying pressure and would have collapsed on the spot. It was akin to having a rubber band stretched too tightly to the point of tearing.
It seems like Trissy still doesn't know what's happening to her body. She also doesn't know the meaning behind the name Cheek.
Klein quickly calmed his thoughts, looked out the window, estimated the distance, and counted the time. His spiritual intuition and corresponding experience told him that doing anything in such a situation was better than nothing. Therefore, with the danger of being silenced at hand, he was prepared to try his best to save himself. 3, 2, 1. Klein suddenly opened his eyes and snapped his fingers. At the edge of the road, a small fire ignited on a tree with only withered branches left. The flames quickly soared into the sky. Several matches inside his pocket, that Klein had intentionally divided up, burst into flames, and a crimson color engulfed his black attire. His figure disappeared from the interior of the carriage, and he walked out from the flames by the roadside. "Pa, pa, pa!" He kept snapping the fingers on his left hand repeatedly, his figure constantly flashing through the sparse, withered forest. He rode the flames and rapidly arrived deep in the forest, which couldn't be seen from the outside. Then he paused and pulled out the accessory hanging around his neck. He always knew very clearly that there were hidden elements behind this matter. Therefore, for his visit to Red Rose Manor, he abided by the principles of a magician. He had made some preparations beforehand, such as separating his matches and carrying a number of his mystical items on him. Among the mystical items, the biological poison bottle and the sun brooch were involved in the Capim and Wraith incidents. Therefore, out of caution, he left them above the gray fog. As for the all-black eye which was left behind by Marionettist Rosago, it was difficult to get past the manor guards, hence it was met with the same treatment. Finally, other than the 3 kinds of bullets, purifying bullets, demon-hunting bullets, and exorcism bullets of purification, he only brought along 2 mystical items. The first was the master key that allowed him to pass through obstacles. The side effects of getting lost could be offset by dowsing. Furthermore, it looked like an ordinary key, so it wasn't easily discovered. The other item was a key element of Klein's preparations, Edessak's copper whistle. Simply put, when he faced a danger he couldn't handle himself, he could ask for the help of a powerhouse.
After that encounter, whether I recognize Trissy or not, I am definitely on a kill list. There's a high chance that I've been targeted by 008. There won't be any negative effects getting Mr. Edessak's help. Well, that's if 008 has been behind all the coincidences.
Klein raised the cold, ancient copper whistle and put it in his mouth, blowing on it. Without a sound, he activated his spirit vision and saw the white bones that gushed out from the ground like a fountain. He saw the nearly 4-meter-tall giant messenger taking form. It lowered its head and looked at him with its eye sockets burning with black flames. That huge body gave Klein a sense of security. He took out the pen and paper he carried with him and wrote a word: help. Next, he folded the paper and stuffed it into the messenger's hanging palm. After the messenger had disappeared, he put away the copper whistle, deliberately put on a prayer posture, and quickly chanted the honorific name of the Fool.
Honorable Mr. Fool, my investigations have borne fruit. The woman Prince Edessak fell in love with is Witch Trissy from the Demoness sect. She has already advanced to Demoness of Pleasure, and the upper echelons have changed her name to Trissy Cheek.
After quickly making the report, Klein didn't bother to hide his identity and immediately took 4 steps counterclockwise to head above the gray fog. Then he retrieved the scenes of him praying, and he threw it into the crimson star, symbolizing Miss Justice. He tried his best to feign a mocking tone and added in a supercilious manner that was congruent with the style of the Fool.
Cheek. Hehe, that's the true name of the primordial demoness.
After doing all this, Klein immediately returned to the real world, ready to run for his life. He had only taken a few steps when his eyes suddenly lit up. He subconsciously raised his head and saw several meteors burning with raging flames falling from the sky, tearing through the sky and enveloping the entire forest. At that moment, the scarlet light shone into Klein's eyes, giving him an indomitable feeling.
This.
He had never expected that the person he was up against would send meteorites from the sky to silence him. On a yellowing notebook, a seemingly ordinary quill wrote, "For unknown, inexplicable reasons, the Dallas meteor shower arrived at the planet 2 days early. A portion of them just happened to land in the forest where Detective Sherlock Moriarty was hiding. Yes, just happened." Tuesday afternoon, in Audrey's study. The teenage girl, who was about to reach adulthood, was listening intently as Mrs. Escalante explained the connection between the intersection of spectator and telepathist powers with mysticism psychology. Beside her feet, Susie was sitting there attentively. Suddenly, she saw the endless gray fog and a blurry figure in a prayer position in what appeared to be a forest. Soon after, the words reached her ears: Prince Edessak, the Demoness sect, Witch Trissy, Demoness of Pleasure, Trissy Cheek. Audrey automatically filtered out the irrelevant details and noticed the most important words.
So that's the reason. The person Edessak fell in love with is a demoness. Furthermore, many of the demonesses are transformed men. Why do I feel like laughing? Is this why he will bring danger to Backland? Well, I have to warn Father. But what method or excuse should I use?
Audrey tried her hardest to control her expression and gaze, but her mind wandered. At this moment, she saw Mr. Fool leisurely sitting at the end of the long bronze table. She heard him say in a gentle tone with a hint of ridicule in his voice,
Cheek, hie, that's the true name of the primordial demoness.
The true name of the primordial demoness. The primordial demoness.
As her mind buzzed, Audrey's expression instantly collapsed. As an observant telepathist, Escalante immediately noticed that something was wrong with Miss Audrey.
What's wrong?
Audrey thought for a moment and didn't hide her concern as she said,
Ms. Escalante, I just remembered something bad. I should have told my parents before, but I forgot. It will lead to terrible and serious consequences. For example, the destruction of Backland. How few of the millions of people who live here, regardless of them being nobles, the middle class, or the poor, will survive.
Audrey pursed her lips. Her concern couldn't be hidden in her sparkling, emerald-like eyes. Escalante frowned and said,
Will it be too late to do it now?
It's better than not doing so. Ms. Escalante, please wait for me. No, you should leave first.
Audrey entered her spectator state and calmly made her decision. Then she got up and left the study and went into the hallway.
Father has gone to the House of Lords. Only Mother is at home. But what should I say?
Audrey frowned slightly. She didn't slow down, nor did she increase her pace. Next to her were her personal maid and her huge dog, Susie. Gradually, she had an idea. When she arrived at the living room where her mother was, she had already made up her mind. Taking a light breath, Audrey felt an unusual sinking sensation on her shoulders. Then, without hesitation, she knocked on the door. Chapter 472, Latent Danger. Lady Caitlin was sitting on a sofa in the activity room with the deputy butler, butler's assistant, and the attendant of the corresponding services seated opposite her. She was meticulous as she gave instructions on various things to take note of for the dinner banquet that night. This continued until her daughter Audrey came to her side.
Mother, I have something to tell you.
Audrey swept her gaze across the other people in the room. On the way to the activity room, she had felt a slight tremor, but she didn't discover anything unusual. Lady Caitlin looked around and nodded.
All of you can return later.
The activity room turned silent very quickly, and even Susie was signaled by Audrey to leave.
You should stay by my side more often and learn how to handle matters. Although you don't lack such content in your family lessons, it's still profound knowledge on how to effectively combine theory with practice.
Lady Caitlin, who looked to be in her early 30s despite being in her 50s, smiled and educated her daughter.
All right, my little angel. What is it?
Audrey tried to produce the elegant smile she'd practiced in etiquette class, but she found herself with a heavy, nervous smile. She pursed her dry lips and directly said,
Mother, I've been hiding something from you and Father.
Oh?
Lady Caitlin tilted her head, waiting for a further explanation. Audrey's words were a little staccato at first, but then they immediately became smooth and fluent.
I'm already a Beyonder, the kind of person who possesses miraculous powers by consuming a potion.
The blonde Lady Caitlin raised her eyebrows lightly and answered without any hint of surprise.
I know. Both your father and I know about it.
Huh?
Audrey was momentarily at a loss as to how to continue. Lady Caitlin covered her mouth and laughed.
You took so many mystical ingredients from the vault, and you are so naive to think that your father and I didn't notice? By your father's side, in this villa, and in the fief of our family, there's no lack of Beyonders. They may be a result of a simple employment relationship, or they may have been assigned by the Church of the Goddess, or they may have been members of the Hall family. His Majesty has tacitly agreed to such matters, and we have also tacitly consented to your little adventures. Sigh, you will eventually grow up and mature. Your father and I will never be able to protect you under our wings forever. You will have to face certain matters alone, so having additional powers to aid you as a trump card is good too. Yes, according to the general knowledge that I'm aware of, the initial stages shouldn't be that dangerous, and advancing will require 1 to 2 years, or maybe even 3 years. So your father and I aren't too anxious, and we intended to wait until you become an adult to give you a word of warning so that you can stop at your present state.
No, Mother, your general knowledge is wrong. You don't know the acting method. If I have all the ingredients, then I can become a Sequence 7 psychiatrist before the new year. Moreover, I do not wish to stop. The death of Duke Negan has made me understand that the world isn't as stable and peaceful as I thought it was. I want to have the power to protect all of you at critical moments. Mr. Fool is gradually recovering, and evil gods are making repeated attempts to descend. Although I'm still immature and lack the necessary knowledge, I can sense the hidden, indescribable dangers from these matters.
Audrey had always known that she couldn't avoid the problem of taking Beyonder ingredients from the vault, but she thought that perhaps by chance, her parents weren't aware of the specific effects of those items. At most, they would suspect that she was getting deeper and deeper into her mysticism enthusiast circle. After releasing the burden in her heart, she paid no notice to her mother's exhortation and said,
Mother, I later joined a secret organization, one that's more academic and doesn't worship evil gods. Please forgive me for not being able to say its name and details, but I've already made an oath.
Without waiting for her mother to ask, she cut to the chase.
I received word today that the commoner girl who Prince Edessak has fallen in love with is a demoness. I don't know what kind of plot they are plotting.
The first 2 sentences of hers didn't contain any absolute connection. The former referred to the psychology alchemists, while the source of the latter was the Tarot Club, which was Mr. Fool. Through this arrangement of sentences, every word she said was true, one that could be confirmed through divination. However, it would make people believe that her news came from the secret organization known as the Psychology Alchemists. The smile on Caitlin's face gradually disappeared as she solemnly asked,
Demoness?
She didn't know much about the mysterious world, but the very word was enough to make her sense the evil and become uneasy. Audrey quickly nodded.
Yes, a demoness of pleasure. And what scares me even more is that her name is Trissy Cheek.
What's wrong with that?
Her mother asked, puzzled.
A member of that organization has seen the name Cheek in an ancient book.
Audrey said the lie that she had already planned for. Whether it was her tone, her words, the details of her expression, or her body language, they were all flawless.
In the 4th epoch, or earlier, it's a name that belonged to the primordial demoness.
Immediately after, she gravely added,
That's an evil goddess.
Lady Caitlin didn't understand what the primordial demoness meant, but she knew exactly what an evil goddess meant. She couldn't sit still any longer and quickly replied with a question.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure.
Audrey didn't doubt Mr. Fool at all, but she couldn't say so openly.
No matter what, I think it's necessary to seek the royal family. No, get the Beyonders of the Church of the Goddess to confirm the matter. If it involves an evil goddess, it's always the right decision to be cautious.
Caitlin looked up at her daughter in surprise.
Audrey, you've grown up.
If it weren't for the urgency of the matter, Audrey would have pretended to be reserved upon hearing such praise. She would first modestly wheedle, then return to her room in glee. She might even twirl into a dance. But now, she couldn't care about that at all. She quickly let her worry and nervousness surface on her expression.
Mother, can you help me hide the truth? I heard that the Beyonders of the Church and the royal family abhor secret organizations that aren't a part of them. Well, you can say that it was news which Father received. He should have plenty of channels for information.
Caitlin stood up and gave her daughter a hug.
Don't worry, neither your father nor I will involve you in this. The father won't be back until evening. I'll first let the hidden guards appear, pretend that he sent a message. Then I'll get the Church of the Goddess to send Beyonders to protect our family.
All right?
Audrey replied happily. At that moment, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. She was exhausted from maintaining her prolonged high level of tension. Looking at the few burning meteors crashing down at a high speed and enveloping the whole forest, Klein actually had the thought of waiting helplessly for his doom in despair. Even if he continuously used Flaming Jump, It would be impossible for him to escape the forest and the dangerous epicenter before the meteor shower landed. Moreover, the weak body of a beyonder from the seer pathway didn't allow the possibility of him withstanding a head-on meteor strike. Even a zombie that wouldn't be wounded by a revolver would immediately be turned into minced meat under such an attack. Moreover, it would become charred black. Flaming jump. The yellow-white light shone into the depths of his eyes, quickly giving Klein, who had not given up, an idea. In a situation that was depicted in seconds, he didn't hesitate. He did whatever that came to his mind. Pa. After silently calculating the distance, Klein snapped his fingers and ignited all the remaining matches in the matchbox. A streak of crimson-red light soared into the sky, quickly enveloping his figure within it. Klein disappeared without a sound, appearing in the flames above the meteor. Whoosh! The meteor rapidly descended. The moment he leaped out of the flames, he was away from the meteor's vicinity, entering a region of air with frighteningly high temperatures. At the moment when he used his Beyonder powers to jump, Klein was immune to ordinary flames, even if the temperature was rather high. However, upon exiting that state, he had to do his best to avoid the flames via flame controlling. Otherwise, he would suffer burn wounds and even burn to death. In addition, the hot air wasn't within his jump range. Pa. Klein snapped his fingers again, causing the air at a critical point to ignite. He phased into another flame, trying to avoid the first blast upon the meteorite's impact. However, no matter how many times he tried and how many risks he took, he still couldn't escape the danger. There were only two choices: to jump to a point away from the forest and suffer the meteorite's resulting blast, or to jump around like an acrobatic, waiting for the mushroom cloud to swallow him up. For a moment, Klein thought he could see himself being torn apart, scorched black with flames still burning over his body. A thought flashed through his mind, and his vision suddenly changed as all the colors saturated. The reds became redder, the yellows became yellower, and the whites became whiter, just like a strange oil painting. The oil painting seemed to be different from the real world, allowing Klein to watch as the meteorite slowly crashed to the ground. That patch of the forest was instantly destroyed, and the ground clearly quaked a few times. Plumes of smoke that were mixed with flames rose up, forming a strange mushroom cloud. Such an impact didn't affect Klein, because the blast simply didn't enter the superposed, still oil painting world. Klein was stunned at first before he saw the human figure next to him. The figure had bronze skin with a medium build. He wore a long black suit and a half-top hat. He had a pair of aged brown eyes, soft facial features, and a tiny mole below his right ear.
Mr. Edessak.
Klein cried out in joy. He finally knew what scene the revelation from the divination he made a long time ago corresponded to. It corresponded to the present. The sea of blood represented a perilous situation, and being pulled up by Mr. Edessak meant being rescued because of him. Just as Klein's words left his mouth, Edessak waved his hand, grabbed his arm, and pushed his way through the deep layers of saturated colors. The ordinary-looking quill was no longer writing on its own, and its surface had dimmed a little. The solemn-looking middle-aged man with only one eye grabbed it and quickly wrote as if he was channeling a spirit. It was obvious that Edessak Eggers had yet to recover all his memories and strength. While attempting to travel through the spirit world and the astral world, a latent danger appeared as a result of this problem. Hence, he and Sherlock Moriarty found themselves landing near Insangwil and his friend. Chapter 473, Faceless. Everything around him was like an illusion. The colors were saturated and superposed as they quickly receded. As soon as Klein came to his senses, observed and experienced this wonderful passage, he felt Mr. Edesack's hand, which was holding his hand, tremble slightly. Before he could even react, he felt a strong sense of weightlessness. His body couldn't help but plummet as he even began spinning. The colors of red, yellow, white, and black around him faded rapidly, and Klein fell, hitting the solid ground hard. The impact left his head spinning and his internal organs churning. Mixed into his vision were bits of golden stars as his vision was restored to normal. To his left was a bottomless dark valley that resembled the legendary Devil Abyss. On the right was a gray stone wall that continued to extend upwards, as if supporting the entire region. There was no sun, no clouds, and no fog. Some light came from the luminescent moss growing in different places, and darkness and heaviness were the primary tones of this world. Klein pushed himself up with his left hand and nimbly jumped up. He found that the ground beneath his feet consisted of properly paved stone, which could accommodate 2 horse carriages traveling in parallel. It was definitely not naturally formed. One end of the road spiraled down into the dark crevices, while the other led to the top. From time to time, it was possible to see the domed hallways and halls inside the walls. Klein raised his head, but he couldn't see the highest point. His vision was completely blocked by the gray stone wall. Suddenly, he had an epiphany. He and Mr. Edessak had fallen underground, into the ruins of an ancient civilization.
Is it another area, or are we still near Backland?
As soon as Klein thought about it, he heard Mr. Edessak say in a low voice,
"Leave here first. Head up."
"Ah?" Before Klein could understand the meaning behind his words, he saw a flash of light from the side, instantly forming an illusory door that opened outwards. The door seemed to be made of bronze. It wasn't real enough, but it was unusually heavy. On the surface, there were countless strange patterns and indistinct symbols. With a creak, a crack appeared in the door. Pale, bloody arms reached out from the crack, one after another. In addition, there were also greenish-black vines with baby faces and sleek tentacles with protruded eyes.
It's very similar to the effect of Miss Sharon's mystical item.
While he was in thought, Klein noticed that the arms, vines, and tentacles were no longer as crazy as before. They had calmed down and stuck to the ground, completely unlike their former appearance of madly pulling a Sequence 6 zombie into the door. Immediately after, the gap between the doors widened, and a human figure emerged from it. The figure wore a pure black clergy robe, and his facial features were clear and distinct like an ancient classical sculpture. His hair was dark gold in color, his eyes were dark blue, and he had a high nose bridge. He wore a bonnet which was popular with the elderly, and his sideburns were somewhat gray in contrast to his middle-aged appearance. Looking at the figure's completely lifeless eye, Klein suddenly recalled the name of the person who had just arrived. Ince Zangwill! The former archbishop who had directed the Tingen incident and dealt heavy damage to the Nighthawks team, as well as being the owner of Sealed Artifact 008. Almost at the same time, Klein turned around and, following Mr. Edesack's instructions, fled towards the top of the road. He knew full well that, being a Sequence 6, he would only serve to be a burden and distraction in a clash between demigods. In this race for time, false modesty and pretentious words were unnecessary. They would harm both him and his companion. Tap! 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 As there was nothing he could ignite underground, all Klein could do was grit his teeth and run as fast as he could. While running, he heard Edesack's calm, gentle voice.
"Run all the way out of here, don't worry about me. I've recalled a lot of things, and I know that I once remained in a particular sequence for a very long period of time. That sequence's name is Undying."
Tap, tap, tap. Klein circled around the cliff and entered a dark, domed corridor. The walls on both sides were engraved with modeled murals. At that moment, he heard a dignified and hoarse voice reverberate from where he previously was.
Teleportation is prohibited here.
A figure had arrived beside Ince Zangwill without anyone noticing. He was floating in midair, in defiance with the laws of physics. He wore a gorgeous gold mask, and Ince Zangwill didn't attack immediately. Instead, he glanced at the bend where Klein's figure had disappeared. Sequence 4, Night Watcher of the Church of Evernight's Pathway, could grant a certain amount of bad luck to others, but Ince Zangwill, who had just silently blessed Klein, realized that things like Klein slipping and falling into the ravine didn't happen. Not only that, Ince Zangwill seemed to be hallucinating as well, as he saw a thin, grayish-white fog. Without having the luxury of time to think, he withdrew his gaze and cast it back to Edessak Eggers. Tap, tap, tap. Running at full speed, Klein suddenly stopped in his tracks. His spiritual intuition told him that there were people ahead of him. Beyonders, they were most likely the guards here. After contemplating for a bit, he reached out with his left hand and wiped his face. At the same time, crisp sounds emitted from his body as his body grew 7 to 8 centimeters taller. By the time his left palm left his face, he had turned into a single-eyed, middle-aged man with dark golden hair and a high nose, Ince Zangwill. Recalling the other party's demeanor, Klein used an illusion to change his clothes before quickly walking around the corner and entering a large hall. There were 4 guards in dark black armor, their gazes keen. Klein's face was calm as he walked over. He deliberately spoke in a hoarse voice and sternly said,
Someone has sneaked in here. I'm looking for him. Did you discover any clues?
The leader of the guards first examined him before lowering his head and saying,
Mr. Zangwill, nothing happened here.
Okay.
Klein nodded slightly, walked past them, and left the hall. During this entire process, although he remained highly nervous, with his back drenched in sweat, he appeared to be calm and reserved. He looked no different from Ince Zangwill, be it his appearance or his aura. Relying on his faceless powers and his running speed, he quickly passed through 3 checkpoints and arrived at the end of the building. There was an illusionary door formed by pure ghostly blue light. Apart from that, it was completely sealed shut. Although he was worried about the demigod battle between Mr. Edessak and Ince Zangwill, Klein remained hidden in the shadows outside the room. He patiently spied for a while and found that someone had passed through the ghostly blue light while another person had used it to leave. He noticed that those who left had to show something that looked like a badge before they could get permission from the 4 guards to enter the door of light.
I don't have time to wait for the next person with a badge. I can only take the risk. The battle over there could end at any moment. Even if it doesn't, the search order will be sent over here quickly.
Klein quickly made his decision, once again walking into the room with the likeness of Ince Zangwill.
Something has happened outside.
He had no confidence in mimicking the former archbishop's voice, so he could only express himself with deliberate hoarseness as an indication that he had experienced an intense battle. The guards who were left confused by the news didn't react until Klein approached them. They reached out their hands to stop him.
Mr. Zangwill, where is your pass?
Don't waste any more time.
As he spoke, Klein pulled a badge from his pocket and thrust it into the man's hand. This calm performance made the rest of the guards relax. The moment the guard who had received the pass looked down, Klein suddenly lunged forward. Just as he landed on the ground, he quickly did another roll and went straight through the ghostly blue door. Only then did the guard realize that the badge in his palm had rapidly faded, turning into a piece of paper. On the top left of the piece of paper, there was a rather commonly seen blessing recently, Happy New Year. The abyss-like crevice was filled with an illusory, pitch-black liquid. Moreover, the surface of the water was still bubbling without stopping, and many pale-skinned arms were wildly extending outwards. Ince Zangwill had a general idea of Edeссak's standards, and he was neither surprised nor afraid, for he had a demigod to help him at the moment. What worried him the most was another problem. 008, which was forcefully developing the story, could backfire on him at any moment. At that moment, he swept his gaze past the corner of his eye and was shocked to find that the quill, 008, had left his pocket without him realizing it. It was floating in front of the gray rock wall, fervently writing lines of words. In a fierce battle, there would always be a variety of accidents, such as Ince Zangwill's belt snapping and having his pants drop. The ghostly blue light filled Klein's eyes, constructing a passageway that overlapped with layers of light between the deep darkness and the roaming, invisible creatures. Klein didn't bother to observe his surroundings as he scrambled to the end of the passage. He stood up, straightened his clothes, restored Ince Zangwill's stern expression, and stepped into the rippling screen of light. After a moment of being mentally adrift, he found himself in another room, which was also occupied by quite a few guards.
Something went wrong underground. Keep an eye out. Do not allow anyone entry.
Klein calmly instructed, walking towards the door at an unhurried pace.
Yes, Mr. Zangwill.
the guards replied respectfully. At this moment, the guard from before passed through the ghostly blue light and shouted loudly,
There's a problem with that Zangwill from before.
Everyone turned to look at the door, but Klein was nowhere to be seen. Tap, tap, tap. The guards immediately split up into several groups to search in every direction for their target and notify their companions. The scene momentarily turned rather chaotic. One of them had just rounded the corner when he saw Incy Zangwill's back. Subconsciously, he pulled out his sword that coruscated with lightning and performed a forward cleave. Oof! The figure floated away weightlessly and became a splintered paper figurine. At the same time, 2 loud bangs could be heard. Pale golden bullets passed through the visor that wasn't pulled down and accurately hit the guard's head. Before he could even cry out, the guard collapsed to the ground with a thud, convulsing. Klein stepped out of the shadows in the corner and expressionlessly slipped the revolver back into his underarm holster. After burning the paper figurine, he quickly dragged the guard to an empty room and changed into black armor, switching his appearance to the fallen guard. Then he picked up the lightning sword and left the room, closing the wooden door behind him and running forward in a panic. He was going to notify every guard along the way that there was a problem with Incy Zangwill. Chapter 474, Edessak's Story, Inside the Solarium of Red Rose Manor. Edessak Augustus stood by the full-length window, looking at the indifferent Trissy with a gloomy face, and he said in a voice that was like a volcano about to erupt,
Why did you run away again?
Trissy looked past him and beyond the window, chuckled, and answered with a question.
Did you see the meteor shower? Did you feel the trembling of the earth?
Behind her, porcelain and other items in the cabinet had fallen onto the thick, soft carpet. The old butler, Funkel, was standing beside her. It's not too rare for that to happen, Edessak replied in a low voice. Trissy raised her eyebrows slightly.
You are very dull. Then let me be frank with you. I am a demoness.
Prince Edessak's expression didn't change at all. He turned to the old butler and said,
Guard the door and prevent anyone from entering.
Yes, Your Highness.
Funkel gave Trissy a cold look and walked out of the solarium. When he heard the door close, Edessak exhaled slowly.
Trissy cheek. Heh, you prefer to be called Trissy. I know you're a demoness. The person who helped you purchase the Beyonder ingredients failed. What you received was provided by me. I don't mind that my princess consort is a witch or a demoness. I've even seen your wanted poster.
Trissy was surprised at first, but she then revealed a mocking smile.
You sure know a lot. Did you know that I was once a man? And that my real name is Triss?
What? Edessak's eyes widened, and he tilted his head a little, as though he couldn't believe what he had heard. Upon seeing this, Trissy couldn't help but laugh. She laughed so hard that she frantically bent back and forth like a lunatic.
Ha, you didn't make a mistake. I was once a man. I used to be like you, and the thing down there was longer and thicker than yours. However, the witch potion had forcefully changed my gender. Are you disgusted? Does it give you goosebumps?
She vented the words she had been repressing all this time before taking 2 steps forward. Edessak instinctively retreated, his Adam's apple moving involuntarily. He mumbled to himself.
No, it's not like that. You're a real woman. There's no problem. I can definitely confirm that.
Then he raised his voice and said,
From the moment I met you, you were a real woman. I don't want to know what you were like in the past. I can pretend that nothing like this happened. What I like, what I love is the present you.
Stunned, Trissy raised her hand to wipe away her tears of laughter.
You're a really pathetic man. Do you still not understand? Our meeting wasn't a coincidence. Even your interest.
She paused in disgust and continued.
Even your interest in me was a result of someone else's arrangement. Don't you think that everything happened too quickly? I believe in love at first sight, but I don't believe that it possesses such powerful bewitchment properties. You act like the main character in a third-rate romance novel, becoming obsessed with love from just one meeting. You fell in love with a stranger, forgetting the type of person you once liked. That's crazy.
Prince Edessak's eyes went blank as his mouth turned agape, but he didn't speak. His body suddenly swayed, as if he had finally awoken from a long dream.
You are indeed my type. But my reaction, it's really too exaggerated.
The corners of Trissy's mouth curled up, and she turned her head to the side to let out a sneer.
What a pathetic man, to have what you like being arranged by someone else. It's like you're a puppet on strings. Don't you understand? You're a person that can be sacrificed. And I, as well as being a hostage for the cooperation between the royal family and the demoness sect, am also a necessary disguise for this deception. I possess an important item of the demoness sect, and under your strict supervision I can be destroyed at any time and result in the loss of the treasure. This is the sincerity of our cooperation, and once the matter is exposed to the other 3 churches or the military, the development of this matter will be very simple. Prince Edessak secretly kept a demoness due to his lust. After knowing of his heinous sins, he shoots himself in the mouth. Then, all the problems would be covered up.
No.
Edessak blurted out. Then, with a twisted expression, he asked,
Why are they cooperating with the demoness sect?
How could a hostage, who might be abandoned at any moment, know?
Trissy gave a self-deprecating laugh.
That's the whole reason behind why I want to flee.
She lowered her head and chuckled in a low voice. Her body trembled slightly from the laughter. After a few seconds, she raised her head once again, curled the corners of her mouth, and said,
What do you want to do with me? Strip me down and throw me onto the bed? No, you've probably formed a psychological resistance. Actually, I don't mind giving you some warmth right now. It's not a shameful thing for 2 poor people to comfort each other.
Prince Edessak darkened his rotund face and looked at Trissy silently for nearly a minute. Suddenly, he closed his eyes, pointed to another side, and said,
You can leave. Leave through that door.
Trissy raised her eyebrows in astonishment.
You're letting me go?
Yes.
Edessak turned to look out the window and slowly replied,
I'll stop, Funkle. As for whether or not you can escape from the other pursuers, that will depend on your own strength and luck.
A dazed look flashed in Trissy's eyes a few seconds before she quickly ran towards the hidden door. Before leaving, she couldn't help but look back.
What about you?
Edessak didn't turn his head, but he continued to stare out of the full-length windows, as if searching for the shadows of his past. He smiled and said,
Me? Let me live in this beautiful story and welcome its final end, good or bad.
Trissy took a breath and, without further ado, went through the secret door. In a quiet room inside St. Samuel Cathedral, one of the 13 archbishops of the Church of Evernight, the person in charge of the Backland Diocese, St. Anthony Stevenson, had received an urgent telegram from Earl Hall's residence. This bearded old man with deeply recessed eyes had an extremely clean appearance. Even though he wore a black and red archbishop's robe, he didn't give off a gloomy feeling. However, anyone who faced him would shudder from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if their spirituality was dominated by fear, or as if they were facing an unknown existence lurking deep in the darkness which stared back at them. Trissy Cheek, primordial demoness. St. Anthony lightly patted the paper and immediately stood up. The light around him suddenly vanished, as if swallowed up by the gloom of the room. All the worshippers in the cathedral instantly felt the coming of night. Everything quickly returned to normal as St. Anthony appeared in front of the Janus Gate beneath the cathedral. Today, the one leading the team was the spirit guide, Daily Simone. Without waiting for her to ask, Archbishop St. Anthony instructed in a deep voice.
Make preparations. The process shall begin. I'm awakening a sealed artifact.
He wanted to use 017. He wanted to use that terrifying sealed artifact to confirm and deal with the Trissy matter. And this was the only Grade 0 sealed artifact stored outside the Holy Cathedral. Only 2 of the church's upper echelons knew that it was in the Backland Diocese.
Yes, Your Grace.
Daly was startled for a second, then she immediately responded. While waiting, St. Anthony closed his eyes as a portion of 017's information surfaced in his mind. Number 17. Name XXXXXX. Danger grade 0. Extremely dangerous. It's of the highest importance and of the highest confidentiality. It is not to be inquired, disseminated, described, or spied. Security clearance. Pope, Team A researchers, and Archbishop of the Backland Diocese. Note: when the Archbishop is transferred out of the Backland Diocese, the corresponding memories have to be wiped out using Sealed Artifact 129. Sealed method. The seal is completed through the combination of 129 and 180. Description: this isn't an item. This is a living angel. Her appearance is beautiful, with black hair and eyes. Looks like a young woman, but her actual age cannot be estimated. Flinder en the mansa scroci. She doesn't have the wings recorded in canon. Just from her appearance, she is no different from an ordinary person. She does not have the ability to think and has lost all sentience. Anyone and everything that comes close to her will completely disappear. Through divination and other methods, it can be confirmed that they're still alive, but are impossible to locate. Currently, 1,825 methods have been attempted, with every one of them failing. 017's range of influence will expand and contract without any pattern. Currently, it has caused more than 70 researchers to vanish. Warning: she cannot be used. Appendix 1. This sealed artifact first appeared in the Pale Era of the Fourth Epoch. Exact year, missing. Exact date, missing. Exaction location, missing. Appendix 2. Based on the information, she has been awakened 5 times. By passing on the message to search for the Insi Zangwill imposter, Klein, with the help of divination, overcame the interference of the Master Key and ran all the way to the exit given to him from the revelation. He knew very well that with a carpet-style search, the corpse in the empty room would soon be discovered, so he had to race against time to get to the exit.
A Faceless's powers should be matched with a mystical item that can destroy corpses and clean up my tracks.
Having gained true knowledge from practice, it didn't take Klein long to cross the checkpoints and patrolling teams before he arrived at the exit where the divination pointed him to. However, what made him even more surprised was that there were no guards here, only a heavy stone door standing there by itself.
What's going on? Why is there no one guarding the exit? Was my divination misguided, or are the guards outside?
As his thoughts raced, Klein found a corner and took off his armor, restoring his light weight and agility. Then he came to the stone door that opened outwards and groped his way to the corner of the left wall. After carefully checking with a gold coin, Klein took out the ancient bronze key. He leaned it against the wall and gently twisted it. Water ripples appeared as they spread out slightly. Klein silently passed through the wall without taking the door. The first thing he saw was the natural light that fell from the dome, which meant that this place was really an exit. Klein carefully stood motionless as he quickly adapted to the light. He saw neat but mottled gray stones under his feet and thick pillars in front of him. In the middle of the hall, 4 hooded figures knelt around what appeared to be an altar. Soon after, Klein heard a soft but gentle female voice.
Mr. A, are you ready?
Chapter 475. Lady Despair.
Mr. A? Mr. A of the Aurora Order?
Klein, who had intended to cling towards the walls and shadows and proceed towards the door, shrank back silently.
Insa Zangwill should be working with some faction of the royal family. Those who are able to excavate and hide such a large underground ruin near Backland must be one of the main powers in the Lowen Kingdom. With Insa Zangwill and 008 participating in this matter, the Church of the Goddess can be ruled out. Although the people of the Lord of Storms are a bit reckless and male chauvinists, it's unlikely that they will work with the demonist sect. At least until now, there have been no Beyonders who appear to be of the Sailor pathway. In the same way, the Church of Steam and Machinery aren't likely suspects. Even the Aurora Order is involved. What are they trying to do?
Klein leaned his back against the wall and slowed his breathing, thinking and listening to the conversation in the middle of the hall. After a short period of silence, a hoarse voice sounded.
It's done.
The answer was so concise that Klein couldn't make out what they were planning. The melodious and pleasant voice from before laughed in a low voice.
You don't seem to trust us very much?
That's right.
Mr. A answered bluntly. The gentle female voice didn't sound angry at all.
Then I'll be frank and describe our goal and why I'm seeking your cooperation. We've done certain things and left behind clear traces. Before we're discovered by the churches of Evernight, Storm, and Steam, as well as the military, we must do the corresponding cleanup. And this requires your help. Yes, it seems like you don't really understand what I mean, so let me give you an example. Imagine you performed a heinous crime like murder in a house. So what's the best way of eliminating any evidence and clues?
There's no need for that. It's our goal to have others witness such an act.
Mr. A said indifferently.
As expected of a member of the Aurora Order, they're all a bunch of lunatics.
Klein made a preliminary identification of the speaking man to be Mr. A, who had killed the Intis ambassador. The clear, soft female voice had a faint wheezing sound.
Suppose it were me, not you.
After a second, Mr. A replied,
Burn that house and bury all the clues there.
The clear and gentle female voice had a smiling tone.
That's exactly what we planned. I'm in charge of committing arson, while you can use this opportunity to go with this development to create a passageway or vessel, so as to allow your Lord to descend upon this world. And the only price you guys have to pay is to bear all the infamy and gain the most enmity from the military and the 3 churches. But I don't think you would mind that.
As long as we can welcome the return of the Lord, even if we're abhorred by every single force, we won't show any sign of cowardice.
Mr. A's tone no longer appeared indifferent and distant.
Arson? The Aurora Order will take this opportunity to complete the ritual for the arrival of the true Creator? This is probably the 3rd time. Why did I bump into this again? What a fucking bad twist of fate.
Klein couldn't help but curse inwardly in Chinese. At this very moment, he was extremely curious and wary against the things that were plotted by this particular royal family faction, Insi Zangwill, and the demoness sect. It was terrifying enough to even use the descent of the true Creator as a scapegoat.
Perhaps they've kept some cards up their sleeves and will eventually destroy the Aurora Order's ritual in the end and destroy all the other factions except themselves.
Klein calmly thought while feeling tense. The gentle female voice said,
It appears like you have no other questions. This place is sufficiently well hidden and can be used for the required setup. You can do your ritual here at ease, and won't need to worry that it'll be interrupted before you succeed. As for the things outside, we've already finished our preparations a long time ago. It's just waiting for the ignition of a spark. If you still have doubts, then you can make another round of checks.
Just as Mr. A was about to speak, Klein heard a dull thud. It was the sound of the door opening.
Who permitted you to enter? Didn't I declare that no one is to approach this area?
The gentle female voice suppressed her rage.
Lady Despair, there's an emergency. Someone has infiltrated the basement. The higher-ups sent me to arrange for a follow-up and close the corresponding passages.
A male voice with a distinct Backland accent responded very quickly. The so-called Lady Despair maintained her silence for a few seconds, as though she was communicating with an unknown existence to confirm the situation. Finally, she said without changing her tone,
Go back inside. Don't come out again, nor allow anyone out. Wait until further notice.
Yes, Lady Despair.
The man ran towards the stone door, with a heavy thud sounding in the background. From the place where Klein was hiding, he could clearly see the stone door leading to the back area. He waited for 7 or 8 seconds before a figure of normal height and build appeared. Phew! The man took a deep breath, stretched out his hands, and bared his teeth as he pushed open the heavy stone door, with a ferocious expression. In that instant, Klein had completely taken in the man's appearance and characteristics without missing a single detail. This was the beyonder power of a Faceless. That man's skin was reddish-brown, and he was clearly of southern continent descent. His facial features had no special characteristics, making it difficult to remember him. Due to him gritting and baring his teeth, he revealed a portion of his teeth. The third tooth on the upper left of his mouth flickered with a golden light. It was a fake tooth.
This.
Klein, with the spiritual intuition of a seer, frowned as he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Very quickly he used his skills to recall the source of his familiarity. The Hanged Man had once requested the Tarot Club members to find a man with reddish-brown skin and a thick Backland accent who had the third tooth on his left missing. The man's name was Balin, and he was involved in the escape and disappearance of many colonial island slaves. And at this moment, the man in front of Klein was almost identical to the Balin that was described by the Hanged Man.
The disappearance of the colonial island slaves. The many tribes of the southern continent vanishing into thin air. Balin's appearance here. Capim, who took a large share of the underground slave trade, was protected by 4 Beyonders suspected to be of the Arbiter pathway. Among them, the strongest was a Sequence 6, and even a Sequence 5. Capim constantly targeted relatively innocent girls in his abductions. The passing of the Grain Act, the improvement of the textile machines, all resulted in a large number of people losing their jobs. Many female textile workers silently left East Borough after receiving new jobs, not leaving any clues.
The scattered dots instantly formed a line in Klein's mind, pointing directly into the depths of the earth.
What are they up to, that they need such a large number of people, as well as so many pure and innocent girls? A ritual? An extremely terrifying ritual that takes a very long period of time while being held in secret?
Klein's pupils suddenly contracted. Creak! Bang! The stone door closed, and Balin disappeared from his sight. The hall was silent for a few seconds before Mr. A's deep and hoarse voice rang out again.
I smell an accident. Let's begin. We need to hurry before it arrives.
Lady Despair responded slowly.
That's exactly what I was thinking. But I need you to send me to Eastborough.
Eastborough?
Klein had a bad premonition.
No problem.
Mr. A answered with a lack of emotion. Under the hood, a transparent and blurry book appeared in front of him. Accompanied by a distant and indistinct chant, he said,
I came, I saw, I record.
The book quickly flipped open and stopped at one of the pages. Soon after, it began to emit a light blue and illusory light. The light enveloped the white-robed Lady Despair, causing her figure to blur at first, then becoming indistinct. In an instant, Lady Despair saw countless indescribable silhouettes. She discovered lustrous brilliances which contained the bright and pure splendor of endless knowledge at the highest point. Her body was being dragged forward by a strange force as she rapidly tore through space. Not long after, she left her original spot and arrived at a secluded, uninhabited, and filthy corner of an alley. She pulled down her veil to cover her face and looked up into the sky. The afternoon sun had once again been obscured by clouds and fog, turning pale and dark. The light yellow fog wasn't particularly thick, and it sank down to every corner of Backland, giving off a slight choking sensation amidst its coldness and moisture. It's a pity that the smog didn't reach the point when it's in its worst and calmest state. The accident that happened to Trissy, the sudden and temporary loss of control over 008, the appearance of Edessak, the destruction previously caused by Black Emperor, these had complicated matters, garnering the attention of others. It forced the operation to be brought forward to today. Lady Despair surveyed the area, walked out of the alley and into the streets. Her steps were slow, as though she were wandering in a sea of fog. Wherever she passed, the fog would unnoticeably thicken. Tinged with an iron-black color, it silently lowered the range of one's visibility. As she left the street, a sallow-faced tramp in an old jacket suddenly coughed violently and fell to the ground. The two poor people close to the tramp retreated in horror. and then they covered their throats with their hands as they gasped for air. It was as if they were suffering from severe lung disease or bronchitis and could no longer breathe. A smog, which was a mixture of iron black and pale yellow colors, descended upon East Borough, the dock area, and the smoke-spewing factory district as it continued to spread throughout Backland. Various scenes in the distance were drowned, and even the towering clock tower was only a pale shadow. One by one, workers and poor people felt the discomfort as they fought against the cold, and the disorderly tramps fell one after another in the woman's wake, their lives as fragile as the bubbles formed during laundry. Lady Despair's expression was calm and gentle, as though she were finishing a work of art. Like an ordinary person, she walked among the pedestrians as she chuckled, and said in a low voice,
"The Lowen Kingdom's history will remember this day. The Great Smog of Backland."
The dark valley had been completely covered by the black incorporeal water, but 008 didn't stop writing. It fabricated ridiculous and terrifying stories wherever it could land its tip on. The dropping of pants didn't affect Insei Zangwill's performance because he was wearing a long robe, perhaps having anticipated a similar accident. The imperative mage stunned Edessak Eggers in the spot, robbing him of his two most powerful Beyonder powers at the last moment. Truly a great assistant in every meaning of the word. However, the stacked door of the spirit world and the underworld were attracted by Edeссak's characteristic. It began being stirred by the powers of their battle, causing unpredictable changes. At that moment, an unknown existence was attracted, resulting in him passing by. He took this opportunity to extend his hands into the real world. Oh no, he caught Zangwill! In midair, two bloody arms, which were covered in squirming flesh, suddenly appeared behind the clergyman-robed Zangwill. They caught Zangwill's shoulders, dragging him into the void and into the spirit world.